Welcome back to E-commerce AI, the revenue revolution. Today we're joined by Matt Wozniak, the founder of WozDigital, helping mid-market B2B companies adopt AI to stay competitive. WozDigital empowers distributors and manufacturers, and anyone really, to unlock AI's potential for innovation and growth. Today he joins our CEO, Dr. Ari Kahn, and they'll explore strategies to integrate AI into existing processes and address adoption hurdles and so much more. So without any further ado, I'm going to let you guys take it away.
Thanks, Kristen. Matt, great to see you again.
Good to see you too, Ari. Thanks for having me.
You know, we both do business in a lot of different industries, but, the B2B manufacturing, distributor, industrial space is an area that we both have a lot of customers in, that has a lot of needs on the AI side. But frankly, when I am speaking with businesses in this space, a lot of times they really are, coming from a screeching halt and trying to get started. They don't know what to do first. How do you even, help these often very large but sometimes laggard businesses get started?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's one of those things that everyone in this space is trying to do more with less. You're always kind of at some sort of resource constraint. You may not have the budgets as some of your large competitors. You're always trying to see what's there. And you're also trying to stay on top of the trends. Where are things going? You don't get into anything trendier than AI. All of these things that are popping up, it pops up every which way. What's real? How do you cut through it? One of the things that I've put together and that I leverage is really just this gap analysis, looking at where you are today and then applying it against to what other companies are doing. What are some other use cases that you could be using that are maybe low-hanging fruit across different departments? And how are you using that as a company? Usually what I'm seeing is individuals at these companies might be using AI or might have one person who's gotten pretty good at it who becomes a thought leader. But how do you get from that one person to a department to then a whole organization or company-wide and get the most out of these tools?
Yeah, one use case that we run into a lot is data enrichment, where the product catalog, the product information management system, content management system has holes in it or incomplete, incorrect data, and they're able to use Gen AI in a lot of those instances to fill in the holes. What are some use cases that you're seeing?
Yeah, that's a great use case. I think the one that people see coming up a lot is through the marketing lens. So through the marketing side, any sort of content generation, social media. I've seen some for HR actually. So creating a sort of chat bot for a HR handbook. So instead of all of the questions that you'd be asking a manager, it's like, hey, how do I automate this? Just ask your question to the bot. The bot's going to give the answer. So the bot kind of can automate those different tools. These sort of chatbots, I feel, are kind of the first step, both from an internal and an external side that people are using. Another common use case is in customer service. People are trying to scale up their customer service teams, leverage more of that to reach their customers and give those correct answers. So training the customer service agents appropriately and then having that feed out, both from an internal tool side, so your customer service agents use a tool itself before they're interacting externally, or externally from the technology and interacting with it from that side. So those are just a couple. I mean, they go all across. You can see them in finance, you could see them in legal, product development, everything up, down, in between.
Wow. I just wrote notes because so we have a ton of customers using AI-powered search to manage their product catalog and to sell it and show it to customers. But that same search could certainly go through their HR employee manual and other documents and produce an intranet and the customer service. Those are perfect examples for our company.
It's something that I think comes up, or people tend to think about, okay, AI, how is AI going to serve my customers? But often it gets overlooked, especially in the B2B space. Your customers can be your internal employees. How are they using these tools? How can you make their lives easier? Often the systems and tools that we're dealing with are old, outdated, but they're very key to each business. So how can we use some new tools to kind of layer on top of that give you that best user experience?
Yeah, and I can see a very clear ROI there in terms of just the number of man hours that are spent, answering HR customers getting cut, or HR questions getting cut in half, you can do that math pretty straightforward and give somebody an ROI.
Exactly. Yep. That's a great use case.
Do you see companies focused on ROI or more just innovation-driven buying decisions in terms of when to launch AI?
Yeah, I think everyone would love to be able to just focus on the innovation aspect, but I think especially with this customer use case, the dollars are tight. They need to have some return tied to them. So you don't want to just be spending money for the sake of spending money. You don't want to spend money for research or a cool new tool unless it has some sort of return for the business. So is it going to generate more revenue? Is it going to save a lot of man hours? That's what we're seeing more from that side. But is there some way to measure how this can be done to be sure that it makes sense before diving in and finding yourself 2, 3, 4 months in and not having any sort of return on your investment that you've taken to kind of start the initiative?
That's interesting. That was exactly what I was going to ask about, what the timeline for ROI is. So you're seeing ROI that quickly, 3 months?
Oh yeah, you can see ROI very, very quickly. Maybe in some cases even faster because of just some basic, let's say like blocking and tackling type mechanisms in place. Once you have those, you're able to get way more efficient. Once those low-hanging fruit is tackled, you're going to see the efficiencies, and then it starts to stretch out a bit more, but that's when you can start to hit that next level. And these tools, once I mentioned earlier, the individual, the department, the organization, once you scale up from individuals using these tools in silos, and they start stretching across departments or within departments, that's when these are really able to hit that next level, and you're looking at those whole company workflows across the whole organization.
I think that's a really important point. It's critical to recognize the law of diminishing returns and that you have big returns right out of the gate. And then, if you overdo it, your ROI starts becoming more nuanced. And just getting started, you're going to start seeing positive returns right away. And that's going to help you create the not only the momentum that you need to keep moving, but also in a lot of cases, I think the political capital to keep moving.
Yes, that is exactly it. Because the other piece tied to it is the technology itself, compared to what we've seen in the tech space, is relatively inexpensive. You can get access to these tools. It's becoming so key across, but it's people learning how to use the tools that you're going to get the most out of it. The change management piece is tied to it. How people are interacting, how you're using the tools as an organization. Really what I'm seeing for the most part is, hey, here you go, run with it and figure it out. Where now you have the keys to a Ferrari when all you've driven is a golf cart. So you're going to have a really expensive golf cart because if you're using it just to write emails, like that's a great use case, but you have the ability to do so much more. You have the ability to be so much more efficient with your time by finding ways to use the tool to focus on what resonates with your competitive advantage. How does that kind of come through, and how can your people spend more time in that area?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when you look at process-driven organizations like manufacturing and distribution, you might have a small number of early adopters that are doing interesting things, but because there are so many processes in place, even they aren't able to leverage the advantages until it's rolled out, until you've standardized on whatever, a particular version of ChatGPT or something like that.
Right. Yeah, that is exactly it. It's people need to be able to adapt and adapt quickly, because the other thing that's happening in AI is those early adopters are starting to get way more efficient, and they're getting more efficient at an exponentially increasing rate. So the efficiency gains are just happening more and more, faster and faster. And if you're not adopting, you're falling behind at a faster and faster rate. So that's why this is getting so important.
Yeah. And from a talent management perspective, if organizationally you don't embrace AI, those early adopters are going to move to another company. So your best people are going to go work for your competitor.
Right.
That's never good.
Yes. Everyone's looking for ways, like, what are the mundane things that I don't like doing with my job? How can I automate those and focus on the parts I like? That's becoming more and more important to focus on.
So what are some of the low-hanging fruit AI-powered tools that you see people either as early adopters or in the early process of of bringing AI into the organization using?
Yeah, I think it's really just what the basic foundational tools are probably the most important, and kind of trying and testing those out. And when I say those, like just like ChatGPT, we've talked about, that's probably got the name brand. That's the Kleenex of the world, it seems. It's kind of taken over. If you're in the Google suite, you would have access to Gemini. That has a lot of capabilities. Google is doing a lot of interesting different pieces. These tools all have some slight nuance across what makes them different. So Google can ingest a lot more data at the same time and kind of have a lot more output that comes of it. Another one that may not be as familiar is Claude, Anthropic Claude. Another tool that can be used that gives a little bit more creative, but has a little bit more restriction tied to it, but helps a lot with marketing and content generation. Or like Microsoft Copilot is another one. So a lot of people have the Microsoft suite. Those conversations come up. Really, all of them can help. If you are in the process of looking at which one makes the most sense for my business, there are some nuances that may want to be considered. But typically what I've seen is it makes more sense just to dive in and start than it does to take too much time trying to figure out how you want to do it on the front end. It's dive in, start getting your hands dirty, mess around with the tool, try out some things, and then kind of you're able to analyze it, because the barrier to entry is, it's not like other software. Like you can dive in and then you can change pretty quickly.
Right, right. Yeah, I can imagine companies getting a lot of value out of like a training program, or even a train the trainer program, where you say, okay, you've got 1,000 employees. Nobody is using Copilot to take notes. They're taking notes in a notepad, throwing it away, not remembering what was said in a meeting. We're going to train some of the key people, and they're going to train everybody else how to just turn on Copilot when you use Microsoft Teams.
Exactly. And that's something as simple as that. And then just being able to say, okay, what happened in this meeting? And then getting used to following up, interacting, saying, what happened in this meeting? How do I leverage this? Combing through meeting notes, where you may spend time thinking, what was that? I go ask 10 people, what was happening in this meeting? What do we agree on? Instead of doing that, you can just type the question and get the answer. And
right,
get
it's like really basic prompt engineering training, letting everyone know that you can say, okay, summarize this meeting. No, make it a one-pager. Just give me the top 3 bullet points. It's not going to be intuitive that you could prompt Copilot, for example, to do that for you.
Right. And that's another point, the prompt engineering that has popped up with these tools. And as these releases come out more and more, how you prompt the tools is becoming a little bit less important. It's still important in terms of how you interact, but they're getting better and better to better understand what you want to say. So think about Google search when that first came out, or search engines. There were certain ways where 20 years ago, when you would type in something a certain way, you would get one result, but if you typed it a different way, you'd get a different result. And then over time, now when we use it, it's like, yeah, you're going to get the same result, whatever you're searching for. And these tools are at those early stages, but they're getting better and better every day that kind of provide that same outcome.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, we're on the cusp of 2025, right? We've got a lot of interesting things happening. What do you see trending, and what should we expect to happen in upcoming year?
Yeah, so trending, you don't get more trendy than AI. You don't get trendier than what this is and what we're talking about. So like AI, it's going to continue. If you feel like it's surrounding you, it's going to surround you even more. If you feel like it comes up in every conversation, it's going to come up twice as much in every conversation. So I think it's not going anywhere. It's not going to go away. One of the things in the AI world that keeps popping up is this concepts of agents, AI agents. What does that even mean? How is this working together? If you were to look at Salesforce, they define AI agents as one thing, Microsoft as another, some industry experts as another. I think it becomes very important to say, when you say AI agent, what do you mean? When you're talking with different software providers or different companies. And then making sure that that autonomy can be there, and that this kind of initial stages are tied together and everything kind of builds up from it. So that becomes very important. That's going to be more and more prevalent in the world of AI agents and how businesses can utilize them. And I also think it's in general just how people are leveraging AI. In this space, it's just how you're using it is going to go from, yeah, nice to have, or maybe we should look into it, to critically important. Mentioning that concept of the people that are adopting are getting more efficient at an increasing rate. that means that they're moving faster. So jumping on that and getting there as quickly as you can to get more efficient, that's going to become critically important, because those who are using it for these different use cases are going to get more efficient, are going to be more profitable. But they need to be looking at how they're using the tools effectively and jumping in and not waiting to find that absolute perfect use case to do so.
I think that's a really great point, that if you're going to be competitive in 2025, you have to get started with AI. And it's really simple. If you just teach everybody how to have AI take notes in their Teams meetings with Copilot or whatever the equivalent software is that they're using, all of a sudden you're going to get an increased efficiency for every single person. If you just have a 2% increase in efficiency, and I think it's more than that, per person in an organization, every 100 people, that's going to be like 2 people equals $250,000 a year in increased efficiency.
Exactly. It's starting with something like that. That's it. It doesn't need to be, I know it's a big, scary change and it's big and it's different, but something so simple. Leverage it, record your meetings, start interacting from that side. That is a great takeaway that people should take. Just seeing what's there. You don't need to talk to anyone. You don't need to hear a sales pitch or have anything just to record your meeting. Perfect. Start with that, and that's going to bring you value, and then just take step by step by step as you get more comfortable using the tools.
Yeah. And on the agentic side, we're focused on that because in addition to creating efficiencies for the individuals with even just as mundane as taking notes in a meeting, we're also seeing that the integration between multiple systems is becoming less rigid. It's becoming very flexible because of AI. You don't need to have a pre-contracted interface that communicates in one specific way, but you've got 2 systems prompting each other, and you don't need to have to wait for a standard to be defined like JSON or something like that before you can integrate. We're releasing a product called the AI Bridge that's going to allow our software to communicate with Microsoft or Salesforce Einstein and Microsoft Copilot and so on and so forth, and really embracing that. But it's probably not the first step for a lot of organizations. The first step, I think, is just getting every single person doing something with AI, and then working with the right person that understands the space well enough to see where all of the other low-hanging fruit is, because every organization is going to be a little bit different in that regard.
Yep. And one of the things that I've said from this is where people can tend to chuckle, but I think it is true that finding the person who tends to be the laziest and the best at their job is going to be critically important, because that person is probably using AI really well, and they may have some tricks up their sleeve. And the key is going to be, how do you extract that out of that person to then be able to apply across the organization? So that's one of those use cases where it's like that person should be sought after and should be sought and saying, hey, how are you using this? Or how'd you do this? Because they found ways to get way more efficient and to automate different pieces that they may not have seen before.
Yes.
All right, guys. Well, I'm popping in here because this was a great conversation between you two. And Matt, I wanted to give you a second just to kind of let our listeners and watchers know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kristen. So if you have any questions or you want to seek out, my email is just matt@WozDigital.ai. You can also check out WozDigital.ai. Like Kristen mentioned, I help businesses first with the adopting AI and what that looks like in their business at the earliest stages, but then also in what tends to be happening more is, how do I scale with that? How do I get business value? I know how to write the emails. How do I apply this across the organization? So that's where I'm helping businesses kind of tie that together and find ways to use these tools more appropriately and scaling to stay on top of what else is happening, what are other companies doing, and how are they doing it. So that's a little bit.
One of the things on WozDigital, by the way, there's a fact section under services that I was looking at that just gives you a lot of low-hanging fruit in terms of like just getting a feel for how you might engage, where you might get started. So everyone should take a look at that on the website, and that'll get you grounded, because I think a lot of people don't even know what they don't know yet.
Agreed. And we'll be sure also to have all of these links, your link to your LinkedIn and your website and your email in the show notes too, to make it easy for anybody to find you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in again, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Yep. Thanks, Ari. Thanks, Kristen. See ya.
Thanks, Matt. See you soon.